Hello, everyone. John Dowling, author of Service by the Boxes. I like to ask a question. Should a dealership in 2025 have an internal labor rate? When I start working with a new dealer and we start discussing different service issues or product support issues, I ask them, that's one of my first questions I ask them is do you have an internal labor rate? And when the dealership owner or executive leadership says, yes, we have an internal labor rate, and I start to push back on that a little bit, and they say, well, John, why am I going to charge myself full price to PDI a piece of equipment? That tells me a lot about the mindset of that dealership fairly quickly. Is number one, they're a sales-focused dealership. They're sales-focused, and they see themselves as the sales department. They see that the sole revenue-generating department is the sales department, and rental and parts and service are there to support the selling of that piece of equipment. Even though for years now, it has been proven over and over that your product support department, your parts and service, particularly your service department, is where you make your money. That's the profit center. That's where you really not only make your profit, but this new era that we're in with product support, your customers expect great service. They don't care about the brand of the equipment anymore. They care about, can you support my product? So when they say, why am I going to charge myself to have a machine delivered or to get a machine PDI'd or set up and ready to go for the customer? That tells me that they're sales focused. Now, it's your dealership, and you can do your accounting any way that you want to do it. But let's just talk about some issues about this. Number one, if you have an internal labor rate, you tell every other department that they are a second-class department, that their job is to support the sales department, and the sales department gets whatever they want, and the ownership of the dealership or the executive management doesn't really care about the other departments. That's just bad for morale. But also, it's hard to determine if you have a service problem. If you're not allowed to make money in the service department, but yet you're going to hold your service managers responsible for making money, that's a contradiction. Let me explain. If you're going to expect your service manager to give priority service to your sales department, but yet you're not going to allow them to make any money, then why are they going to do it? Because at the end of the month and at the end of the quarter, you're going to hold that service manager accountable for revenue and profitability, but yet you force them to sell a low margin product over a high margin product, and you blame them for it. Let that sink in. You, with the internal labor rate, you force your service managers to sell a low margin product. You force them. And that selling of that low margin product consumes all of their capacity for the month. And at the end of the month, you're going to hold them accountable for low revenue and low profitability. But they did exactly as you instructed them to do. So who's responsible for low margins and low revenue for the service department? Now, a lot of people would say, well, John, in theory, that makes sense. But why am I going to increase my cost and for the dealership to sell a piece of equipment? I'm just going to make less money. No, you're not. And so one thing, let's take a step back. If you're the owner of a dealership, you own the whole dealership. You just don't own the sales department. You own the whole dealership, which is whole good sales, parts, service, and hopefully you have rental, because that's a cash cow. What you do when you have an internal labor rate, you take all the profit from all your other departments and you show it in the sales department. You take the profit from your parts and you take the profit from your service department, i.e. your internal labor rate when you do your PDIs and you install a loader or a radio or GPS systems. You take all that profit that your parts made and your service department made, and you show it in the sales department. You artificially inflate your sales margins. And at the end of the quarter, at the end of the month, you look at your P&L and you go, man, my sales department is killing it. They're doing a great job. Look at all that revenue. Look at all that profitability. And then as you go down your P&L, you look at your parts department and go, not too good. Then you look at your service department and go, oh, their revenue and their profitability is in the tank. That's my problem with my dealership, is my parts and service department. But wait a minute. When you have an internal labor rate, you take the profitability from your service department and your parts department and you shift that to your sales department, artificially inflating your revenue and artificially inflating your margins. And so your sales department looks great, but your parts and service department are struggling. And so as you continually to focus on your sales department, because that's the cool and sexy department, and you grow your market share and you increase your market share and you increase the volume of your sales, what you're doing is you're forcing your parts and service department to continue to sell low margin products. And as you continue to expand and you buy more dealerships and you have a larger territory, you force them, your parts and service department that have limited revenue capacity, to sell low margin products, which continually drives down their revenue and their profitability, artificially bloating your margins on the sell side. And every time you look at your P&L, you just get mad because it's your parts and service department that are underperforming. Now think if you were that service manager who you forced to sell the low margin product, and yet you berate them for having low margins and low revenue. And if you have a smart service manager says, I'm not going to prioritize internal work orders for the whole goods department because those are low margins and I have to hit my budget for this month. So I'm going to focus all my energy, all my technicians, and I'm going to try to increase service or customer pay revenue because I'm making a lot more margin on that product, on servicing that customer than I am internal. And that works for a couple of weeks or maybe a month until the sales department starts screaming of we can't get any sales out because the service department is the bottleneck. The service department is pushing off or not prioritizing the service sales, the whole good sales anymore. But remember your policies. Remember what you're telling your service department. We want you to grow revenue and we want you to grow profitability. If you have an internal labor rate, the only way your service department can grow revenue and profit your margin is focusing on customer pay work, which means they're not going to prioritize your whole good sales anymore, which means it's going to prolong getting that new equipment out into the market for it to fail and to turn into customer pay work. So no matter how you slice it, no matter how you look at it, an internal labor rate will not work in 2025. If you have any questions, please leave comments below. If you like what you're hearing, please like and share. If you have any questions, email me directly at john at servicebytheboxes.com. Have a great rest of your weekend and see you on Monday.